Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition D&D. Where we last left off, we were talking about the outer planes when we're talking about the multiverse. Let's continue with where we have with Limbo. Limbo is the plane that is chaotic neutral. It is a rolling sea of literal chaos. Everything there is in constant flux in this realm of pure chaos and just ridiculous, where you can find a diamond transitioning to liquid water, then turning to fire. Everything there is in a constant state of flux, where these small bastions of what can be called normal landscape exist in little bubbles almost and spotted throughout the area. Little almost jewels in the shining sea of madness, this rolling riot of nightmare. Limbo has no gravity. And things move around there by using the very thoughts they have. The speed that they move is through their thoughts. And creatures with powerful minds can actually influence Limbo itself, creating different objects within it. The most powerful minds can even forge their own island homes and realms that they can rule over. Now for some of the inhabitants, Salati are creatures that live and swim amongst this chaos. They don't create anything. They only exist amongst it, kind of just living as part of it. On the other hand, the Gitsurai monks, they forge monasteries that float out in this chaos that they can learn their craft from. Now, the optional rule here is the power of thought. The first thing a character can do, this gives them a number of actions that they can make on their turn. The first action you can do is you can make an intelligence check in order to move something with your mind. This does include yourself. But you'd make your check, and depending on the size of the object you're moving around, depends on the DC. For a tiny object, it's DC 5. Small, 10. Medium, 15. Large, 20. And huge or anything larger than that require a DC 25 intelligence check. If you succeed on the check, you move whatever it is 5 feet. On the other hand, for each one that you exceed this check by, you move it by an additional foot. So you can push things along at a speed, but the more powerful the mind, the faster it goes. Now you could also use the power of your thought to alter the material state of an object, a non-magical object. Effectively, you would concentrate the object and you could change it into something of equivalent size. It once again requires an intelligence check. This time the DC is 10 for something tiny, 15 for small, 20 for medium, or 25 for large or larger. But effectively then you transition it so you can change like a handful of water to a handful of fire. You transition it from some kind of matter/energy state to a completely different one, just using the power, as long as it's not magical. You can change a boulder into a rolling ball of fire. The last thing you can do, of course, is create an area of stability using your mind. You can create a sphere of stability within Limbo by making an intelligence check. The base DC is 5 for a 10-foot radius sphere that you can create. You can increase this radius by 10 feet for every 5 higher that you get on that DC. So 10 would make it 20, etc., getting a larger area that you're stabilizing. This area cannot be altered by anyone for 24 hours, at which time you would have to try to stabilize it again, of course, if you want to keep this going. Now, the thing is, this lasts until you attempt to stabilize an area again. So it also means that within that 24 hours, if you try it again, it would replace the area you're doing. You could try to keep a certain area stable, or you could create a much larger area and then accidentally make a smaller area, something like that. But effectively, you have 24 hours, and at any time you attempt to use this ability again, then the previous area you stabilized is now open to, well, the flux of the Limbo. Now let's move on and talk about Pandemonium. Between chaotic neutral and chaotic evil is here. Pandemonium, the plane of madness. It is represented by this kind of massive chunk of rock with holes and tunnels carved out it by the maddening and wicked wind, which just constantly blows through the entire thing, kind of carving out these tunnels. It is a place with no natural light, where fires are extinguished by the terrible wind which just blows through everything. And if you wanted to communicate, you could yell to people, but they would have to be about 10 feet away for them to hear them. And you have disadvantage on any kind of checks related to hearing, any kind of perception or other wisdom-based checks that would relate to hearing something. Most inhabitants have been banished here at some point in time and have gone mad for the wind or found their little niches where they can get away with it. The howling wind which drives all that live there mad. Now, of course, the optional rule is mad winds. Someone that is within Pandemonium has to make a DC 10 wisdom check each hour you're there. If you fail, you get a level of exhaustion. And it will repeat that way until you get 6 levels of exhaustion, which does not kill you in this case, which it would normally. Instead, you get a permanent madness. An indefinite madness that, I'll talk about madnesses a little later when I'm talking about that material in the book, but just know it's driven you insane. Now, you can get rid of these levels of exhaustion if you can get a long rest. If you're out of the wind. That is the only point in time. If you're long resting in Pandemonium and still within the maddening wind, your exhaustion doesn't go away. In fact, you just have to worry about getting more and more of it. You have to find a way to get out of this wind in order to protect yourself from this madness and perhaps get yourself a little better. Now let's talk about the Abyss. It is chaotic evil. The Abyss personifies everything that is horrible and gruesome. Its infinite layers, each though very alien and different from each other, all have this common theme of crushing you down and destroying you in your very essence. They're all inhospitable, and they all have this feeling of kind of crumbling and decaying that seems to feel throughout it. So no two layers are the same. Now the optional rule is abyssal corruption. Now if you're a non-evil character within the Abyss, at the end of a long rest, you must make a DC 10 charisma save. If you fail, you get an abyssal corruption. There's a table in the book that will tell you get to roll on it and figure out what your abyssal corruption is. You keep this abyssal corruption as long as you're within the Abyss, of course, and after the end of a long rest, you can make a DC 15 charisma check in order to overcome it, or a dispel evil and good spell will remove the abyssal corruption. If you are suffering from the corruption and within the Abyss for 1d4 plus 2 days, your alignment then shifts to chaotic evil. Now, this is a permanent change, though a dispel evil and good will change your alignment back to normal, or any kind of similar spell that would remove a curse. So I'm going to start talking about specific layers of the Abyss that's important to know about. The thing about each of these layers is they're ruled over by a demon prince that controls them and shapes it to a degree to their will. Let's start with the Savage Maw, ruled over by Demogorgon, one of the most powerful of all the demon princes. This is a plane of both savagery and madness that even the most powerful demon have to face against the madness of the plane, driving them to insanity. It is a juxtaposition, just as Demogorgon has 2 heads. There is a vast, dense jungle surrounded by endless ocean and brine flats. Demogorgon rules over this layer from these 2 twin towers emerging from the sea. The fortresses of Abysm are one of the few places that things can go and not kind of be driven mad by the horrors in the plane. So that's it for today. I introduced you to 3 more planes. I introduced you to Limbo, the plane of chaos, where things change by the sheer thought, by the thoughts of the creatures that live there, that the minds alter it. And then I introduced you to Pandemonium, the plane of madness, where the winds will eventually drive anyone that exists there mad. I moved on to the Abyss, the realm of demons, a place of infinite layers that are all based upon this kind of crumbling decay. I started talking about specific planes you wanted to know about with the Savage Maw, the realm of Demogorgon. In the next episode, I will continue talking about the Abyss with a number of layers that I think you should also know about before moving on to other outer planes that we want to also talk about. So if any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please just leave it in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe just for the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.